Before dawn on June 6, 1944, the fate of Western Europe moved across the English Channel in darkness. Thousands of ships cut through rough water. Tens of thousands of men waited in silence, seasick, cold, and carrying more weight than their bodies were built to hold. Behind them was Britain, crowded with soldiers, aircraft, tanks, fuel, and months of planning. Ahead of them was Normandy, a coastline turned into a German fortress. No one could know if the invasion would break through. No one could know if it would become a disaster. But there was no easy path left. To open Fortress Europe, the Allies had to gamble everything on one morning. For nearly 4 years, Nazi Germany had controlled much of Western Europe. France had fallen in 1940. The German army had pushed across the continent with terrifying speed. Britain survived, but it stood separated from occupied Europe by a narrow strip of sea. In the east, the Soviet Union was bleeding under the weight of the largest land war in history. Stalin demanded a second front to divide Hitler's forces. The Americans, now fully committed after Pearl Harbor, knew that Germany could not be defeated by bombing alone. At some point, the Allies had to return to France. They had to land an army on a hostile shore, build a foothold, and drive inland before the Germans could crush them. The plan was called Operation Overlord. Its first phase, the assault from the sea, was Operation Neptune. The idea was simple in outline and almost impossible in execution. More than 150,000 Allied troops would cross the Channel and land on 5 beaches in Normandy: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. Airborne forces would drop behind the beaches to seize bridges, block roads, and disrupt German reinforcements. Naval guns and aircraft would pound defenses. Engineers would clear mines and obstacles. Infantry would storm through wire, concrete bunkers, and machine gun fire. Then the beachheads would link together and become the gateway into France. The danger was not only on the beaches. The entire operation depended on surprise, timing, weather, and deception. The Germans expected an invasion, but they did not know where it would come. The shortest route from Britain to France pointed toward Pas de Calais, and the Allies worked hard to make Hitler believe that was the real target. Operation Fortitude created a phantom army in southeast England, complete with dummy tanks, fake radio traffic, and the illusion that General George Patton would lead the main blow. Normandy was farther away, riskier, and less obvious. That was why it might work. Even the weather became a battlefield. The invasion was first set for June 5th, but storms rolled across the Channel. Landing craft would be thrown off course. Aircraft would struggle to find targets. Paratroopers might scatter across miles of countryside. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the supreme Allied commander, faced a decision that could not be made twice. Delay too long, and tides and moonlight would no longer align. Launch too early, and the greatest amphibious assault in history could collapse before reaching the shore. On the evening of June 4th, forecasters saw a narrow break in the storm. Eisenhower listened, weighed the risk, and gave the order. The invasion would go. Late on June 5th, the first men left the ground. American, British, and Canadian airborne troops flew toward Normandy in waves of transport aircraft and gliders. Their mission was to land behind the coast before the seaborne assault. The British 6th Airborne Division moved near the Orne River and Caen Canal, where glider troops captured key bridges in a sudden, precise attack. One of them would become known as Pegasus Bridge. In the west, the American 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions dropped behind Utah Beach. Many were scattered by darkness, flak, and confusion. Some landed far from their zones. Some drowned in flooded fields. But the scattering also confused the Germans. Small groups of paratroopers began cutting roads, ambushing patrols, and fighting wherever they found themselves. At sea, the invasion fleet approached Normandy on a scale almost beyond imagination. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, minesweepers, transports, landing craft, and support vessels filled the channel. Men climbed down rope nets into small craft, pitching in the waves. Engines roared. Water sprayed over the bows. Many soldiers had never been in combat. Some had trained for months for this single hour. Others were replacements with little sense of what waited ahead. As the coastline emerged through the gray morning, the German defenses opened fire. At Utah Beach, the American landing went wrong in a way that became fortunate. Strong currents pushed the first wave about a mile south of its intended zone. Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr., landing with the troops despite age and health problems, quickly recognized the situation. The defenses were lighter than expected. Rather than waste time correcting the mistake, he made a direct decision. They would start the war from there. Utah became the most successful American beach that morning. The troops pushed inland, linked with airborne forces, and opened a path into the Cottontaine Peninsula. Omaha was different. Omaha nearly failed. The beach was overlooked by bluffs, trenches, gun positions, and fields of fire. Many of the German defenders belonged to the 352nd Infantry Division, a stronger force than Allied planners had expected. Bombers missed their targets or dropped too far inland. Naval bombardment did not destroy enough defenses. Tanks meant to support the first wave sank in the rough sea or arrived too late. Landing craft dropped men into deep water under machine gun fire, with heavy packs dragging them down. Units were shattered before they could organize. Officers were killed. Radios failed. For a time, Omaha became a killing zone with no clear front line and no obvious way forward. Yet the battle changed because small groups refused to stay pinned down. Men crawled across shingle, cut through wire, climbed draws, and attacked bunkers from the sides. Destroyers moved dangerously close to shore and fired directly into German positions. Engineers cleared gaps under fire. Infantrymen from broken units formed temporary groups and pushed upward through smoke and chaos. There was no single heroic charge that saved Omaha. It was saved by many small decisions made under impossible pressure. By midday, the Germans were losing their grip on the bluffs. By evening, the Americans had a fragile foothold. Farther east, British and Canadian forces fought their own battles across Gold, Juno, and Sword. At Gold Beach, British troops pushed inland and began linking the center of the beachhead. At Juno, Canadian forces faced heavy casualties in the first wave, but broke through with speed and determination, advancing farther inland than many other units by the end of the day. At Sword, British troops moved toward Pointe, a key city and road hub, but German resistance and armored counterattacks slowed the advance. The capture of Pointe had been expected quickly. Instead, it would become the center of a long and brutal struggle. One of the most dramatic actions took place at Pointe du Hoc, between Utah and Omaha. American Rangers scaled steep cliffs under fire to destroy German guns believed to threaten the landing beaches. When they reached the top, they found the gun positions empty. The weapons had been moved inland. The Rangers pushed forward, found the guns, and disabled them, but they were then isolated and counterattacked. Their mission showed the harsh reality of D-Day. Success often arrived mixed with confusion, wrong intelligence, and heavy cost. The German response was slow and uneven. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel had warned that the invasion had to be stopped at the water's edge. Once the Allies built a beachhead, their air power, naval support, and supply system would become overwhelming. But Rommel was away from the front when the invasion began. German command was divided. Some leaders still believed Normandy might be a diversion and that the real attack would come at Pas de Calais. Armored reserves were not released quickly enough. Hitler's hesitation, Allied deception, broken communications, and air attacks on roads and railways all slowed the German counterstroke. The delay gave the Allies what they needed most: time. By the end of June 6th, the Allies had not achieved every objective. Calm remained in German hands. The beaches were not all fully linked. The advance inland was slower than planned in many places. Casualties were severe, especially at Omaha. But the invasion had not been thrown back into the sea. That was the central fact. More men, vehicles, fuel, ammunition, and equipment could now come ashore. Temporary harbors would be built. Supply lines would expand. Airfields would follow. A beachhead would become a front. A front would become a road into France. D-Day did not end the war. It did not even guarantee a quick victory. The fighting in Normandy would drag on through hedgerows, villages, and fields where every road could hide an ambush. German forces would resist fiercely. Allied troops would pay for every mile. But the strategic balance had changed. Germany now faced the war it had long feared. The Soviets pressing from the east, the Allies driving from the west, and its resources stretched beyond recovery. The Atlantic Wall had not been a wall at all. It was a line of defenses that could be broken if enough force, planning, deception, and sacrifice were brought to one point. The gamble of D-Day was that a massive army could cross open water, land against prepared defenses, survive the first hours, and remain strong enough to grow. It was a gamble made with weather reports, maps, false signals, landing craft, paratroopers, naval guns, and the lives of young men who had no control over the larger design. On June 6, 1944, that gamble held. The door into occupied Europe opened not all at once, but beach by beach, road by road, and decision by decision. From that morning forward, the question was no longer whether the Allies could return to France. They had returned. The question was how long Germany could endure the consequences. Normandy became the beginning of the end in the West, not because victory was easy, but because the first impossible step had been taken. Fortress Europe had been breached. And once the breach was made, history began moving through it.